Bună dimineața! Vă salut la Camera de Comerț și Industrie Republicii Moldova. Suntem onorați astăzi de prezența mai multor prieteni, oaspeți, care sunt aici la Camera de Comerț și Industrie Republicii Moldova, în cadrul misiunii de experți TAEX, Republica Moldova, dedicată consolidării capacităților în domeniul a fotografiei priorităților și exercițiul de descoperire antreprenorială pentru specializare inteligentă. Vreau să vă spun, stimați prieteni, că competitivitatea unei economii depinde foarte mult de inteligența și investiția în inteligență pentru a fi mai competitiv. Economia Republicii Moldova, din păcate, nu este cea mai competitivă din regiune și, în acest sens, suportul care vine din partea prietenilor, partenerilor și dezvoltare este una foarte importantă. Pentru a beneficia de anumite suporturi care solicităm noi la partenerii de dezvoltare, desigur este necesar să le oferim un tablou clar de ce avem nevoie, unde, pe ce segmente. În acest sens, acest proiect TAEX vine cu aceste suporturi. În primul rând, cu cartografierea care a făcut-o pe domeniul respectiv. A doilea, cu desfășurarea unui proces de descoperire antreprenorială. Și al treilea, cu identificarea unor nișe specifice pentru economia Republicii Moldova. Noi, fiind o economie mică, avem nevoie să depistăm acea nișă unde am putea să ne manifestăm noi ca economie în regiune. În acest sens, dumneavoastră cunoașteți că Comisia Europeană susține țările membre în domeniul respectiv, iar țările care nu sunt membre, la solicitarea acestora, la interesul acestora, beneficiază de anumite susțineri. În acest sens, Directoratul General al Comisiei Europene a decis să susțină Republica Moldova pe aceste segmente, iar noi, ca Cameră de Comerț și Industrie, care reprezentăm în ansamblu mediul de afaceri din țară, punem umărul împreună cu antreprenorii interesați în domeniu să facem aceste lucruri. Încă o dată vreau să le mulțumesc colegilor care au făcut această cercetare, celor care sunt astăzi și ne vor face această prezentare. Vreau să mulțumesc celor care reprezintă instituțiile publice, ministerele, departamentele, cu care împreună vom încerca să găsim acea nișă de care am vorbit mai sus pentru agenții economici din Republica Moldova, pentru a dezvolta o economie inteligentă. Cei peste 1250 de membri ai Camerei de Comerț și Industrie, dintre care fac parte și mediul academic, universitățile de Republica Moldova, întreprinderile inovative, vă asigur fi parte la acest proces pentru a revigora, moderniza, dezvolta și explora posibilitățile de creștere economică bazată pe competitivitate. Vreau să vă mulțumesc pentru, încă o dată, pentru susținere și posibilitatea de a fi parte a acestor cooperări. Și aș vrea să-i ofer cuvântul doamnei Lina Stănointe. Vedeți că dacă mai des pronunțam familia dumneavoastră, pentru a oferi un cuvânt de salut.
Thank you very much for hosting us here and taking this capacity, building mission this exercise. Which is a continuous effort of GLC pilot project.
Vă mulțumim foarte mult pentru faptul că ne primiți aici și pentru deci, această posibilitate de a participa inclusiv exercițiul respectiv care a fost făcut și pentru a eforturile acestui proiect, RGC, dacă am înțeles corect.
GLC.
GLC, da.
I'm very glad to be here again, and I'm very glad to recognize the most of faces here of this group.
Eu sunt foarte bucuroasă să mă aflu iarăși împreună cu dumneavoastră și recunosc foarte multe fețe de la familiare.
But I'm glad that I don't need to tell here for this group the basis of the small specialization, which we are already prepared.
Și sunt bucuroasă că nu va trebui să repet lucrurile de bază elementare pentru acest grup de participanți în ceea ce privește specializarea inteligentă.
I'm very glad to be here with a group of renowned experts on mapping, on smart specialization.
Și sunt foarte bucuroasă că să mă aflu aici cu un grup de experți care sunt foarte recunoscuți în ceea ce privește deci specializarea inteligentă și catarea.
Here today we will have the presentation of series academic presenting the main characteristics of the priority areas and networking analysis of the potential small specialization areas.
Astăzi vom asculta o prezentare din partea series, deci organizare academic, este organizație sau ceva, dar series academic, cu privire la maparea, la tratarea și la specializarea inteligentă.
And after we will have support from our colleagues from Romania to tell their experience, how they've done in their country and in their regions.
Și apoi vom avea colaborarea colegilor noștri din România, care vor povesti cum ei au făcut acest lucru în țara și în regiunile lor.
Now to continue further, I would like to ask you if you would need further translation or we can continue in English.
Și acum, ca să continui, aș vrea să vă întreb dacă veți avea nevoie mai departe de traducere sau vom putea continua în engleză.
Cine nu înțelege în engleză? De ce nu? Vedeți, doar dumneavoastră trebuie de ce trecem mai departe în engleză? Most of people speak English, that's why...
Deci, inclusiv prezentările din România vor fi în engleză, așa înțeleg eu, da?
Dar cele din... okay. So for the Romanian presentation, I think that you can translate to our... Because the slides are in English, so you will just translate if you will need a translation. So I can translate for Romanian. In order to speed up the process.
Deja primul etapă în domeniul inteligenței economiei trecut. Engleză tot. Specializarea o avem. Thank you. Stimați colegi, noi ca cameră pe 31 mai organizăm Gala Business-ului Moldovenesc în cadrul cărei vom lumina inclusiv și un marcă comercial pe domeniul inteligenței. Deja acest lucru l-am inițiat mai de mult. Vă invităm la acest eveniment. Pentru faza preparatorie, acum avem o ședință cu colegii. Deci eu să rog pe doamna vicepreședinte, doamna Natalia Călenic, să gestioneze mai departe această masă rotundă, iar președintele noastră o să plece. Vă mulțumesc și urez succes! Domnul ministru, vă să.
Further, I would like to explain the state of play in which situation now we are in our small specialization, and well, I have prepared.
Would you prefer maybe to
maybe it's better to stay here.
It will be slides and to follow the direction of the
Lina, which one? Chamber. Chisinau and chamber. As we all know, the first time here, I would like to explain a little bit. When some people I meet after longer breaks, with some we have regular exchanges, but I would like to explain a little bit the framework of GRC support for smart specialization for enlargement in the neighborhood countries, and the state of play, at which position currently we are.
Nu sunt pentru prima dată aici, totuși aș dori să explic, deci la început, pentru început, care este starea...
Stați puțin. Cine are nevoie de traducere? Nimeni. Bun, ok.
Eu stau aici.
Da, mulțumim, gata.
A few years ago, GRC started a pilot project with Moldova, Ukraine, and Serbia to support the processes of small specialization, bringing awareness raising, capacity building, and expertise, organized in a few stages. First, identifying competitive advantages, making a robust analysis of economic, innovative, and research potential, then supporting dialogue, entrepreneurial discovery process between business, academia, research, and other stakeholders, and then support for the strategy design and setting up the governance. We already have had quite a few events here in Chisinau, and you being present there. Actually, it all started from Chisinau. That project has been designed in 2016, and then we had training in Seville, and then we launched a mapping exercise, of which result we had opportunity to present last year. And now here we have a capacity building mission to go further, and we also have a consequent report giving more detailed explanations and complementary of what has been done. Well, so you see currently we are in these stages of the development, and we are slowly but steadily moving forwards, and now we will move to entrepreneurial discovery processes for which we need to prepare and to decide which organization would take a lead. And here we have experts to explain how it was done and how to organize it properly. From the analysis, we already have two reports. One has been presented in October. It had more focus on economic potential, and now we have a consequent report analyzing a scientific, patent, and research and innovation project data, and providing a list of stakeholders involved in the priority areas which were specified previously, and discovering a new domains and niches. We have started to work with you a few years ago, and for us it's also a new learning process to develop a logic framework, a logic steps because it's completely different how it was done in the EU member states, and what elements and gaps are in enlargement neighborhood countries. So now we have developed the framework, and as piloting, we missed few steps here, and sometimes we are coming back to the same issues to rediscuss it as a consequence of governmental reforms and changing of stakeholders. It becomes a natural process. But this framework presented will be, since now, the formal procedure for all enlargement and neighborhood countries willing to start small specialization process and initiatives. So then, we have gone through this stage, but we still need to rediscuss it with institutional stakeholders in which place small specialization will be embedded, in which strategy it will, in which strategic framework it will be embedded. Not to be just a floating concept, but to be implemented in practice and will be backed with some institutional support and measures and tools. We are here at the diagnosis stage, and we almost completed it. Further, the results now we have presented also need to be interpreted with care and need to be discussed. Ideally, we follow these situations, and currently for the qualitative analysis, I think we already have all necessary elements. Economic potential covered by the previous report delivered by Hugo Hollanders. Scientific potential and gaps in it now will be covered with series academic report. And innovative potential we also will hear from the Bureau of Statistics, the presentation of and the results of the first innovation survey. So we have all elements necessary for quantitative analysis. Quantitative analysis also ideally consists of the three elements or a combination of these. We can discuss with you further how we organize it and how this gap can be complemented or also supported or made in parallel with the entrepreneurial discovery process. And after entrepreneurial discovery process is completed, we also provide support on other necessary elements of the strategies, such as evaluation and monitoring, and also best practice for the implementation. After the strategy is prepared, it will be discussed in consultation with us, and it will be approved as by GRC if it contains all the necessary elements to be called small specialization strategy, or a strategy based on small specialization principles. And it would be labeled then as small specialization strategy in the European community. Where we are in the process, that I don't see the part of the screen, but you see more or less all the steps listed, and we are somewhere on the fourth step currently. So here I need to continue and to build further capacity, to move towards entrepreneurial discovery process, and we will hear our experts. And if you have further questions, I will be here for you. And further, I would like to give a floor for experts to continue presenting the report, and we will have opportunity to discuss, and it's important also for us to hear your feedback on the results we have today.
Maybe there are some questions to the presentation made by Lina. As it was mentioned already, the exercise was launched last year, so I'd like to express my thanks to the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, because we were among the first institutions that delegate a representative in the working group. Of course, Diana was from the beginning. Rector Shavga, the president of the sectorial committee for services, attended the first meeting in Seville when the pilot project was launched. As Lina expressed further on, based on the mapping exercises that were done, the economic assessment and now the scientific and innovational potential, we will prepare the national stakeholders for the entrepreneurial discovery process, and here I think that we rely on the chamber's members and also on your links in the territory. As it was mentioned, the smart specialization goes beyond a traditional innovation strategy. Actually, it is I think a top-up strategic view that can be, or it is foreseen to cover this intersectorial approach, going beyond the purely R&D activities and innovation to the industrial policy, cluster policy, educational policy. So here I am very glad to see in the room the representatives of both public and private sector, of academia. I would like to thank, beside the chamber, also the Academy of Sciences of Moldova for providing the data on national research projects, but I think that our colleagues from CIRIS will speak more about this. So this is a working environment, a working meeting, so we are waiting for the feedback to the results presented, because this is not something written in stone as we discussed with the colleagues here, and it is important to come to a joint agreement, to a common vision on how we can join our forces, meaning all the national institutions, together with the S3 platform colleagues, our friends from Romania, which were helpful from the beginning, and of course, we are learning by doing, but to do the right steps in order to have the smart specialization approach in a way or another, I mean, a part of another strategy or a self-standing strategy in a right way. So I would like to offer now the floor to Enric Fuster from CIRIS Academy for his presentation. And afterwards we'll have a Q&A session, I think, based on the presentation.
Well, it's loading. Thank you very much for having us here. Thank you, Vice President, members of the different administrations and agencies and the private sector. Thank you, Lina, Sergio, Igor, Diana, for the support this couple months of work. Also, thank you, Francesco, for the great work. So, as Lina and Sergio were explaining, this is a step forward in a process which basically is yours. So just understand this as an input, externally done with a short time frame, but obviously everything that we add in analytical terms can help you then define the priorities, identify the best actors for EDP, and move forward in what really makes a strategy, which is meetings and day-to-day work like today. So basically our presentation will go in this order. First, a bit of context, policy context, and the vision that we as cities academic will have of the issue. And I believe that with JRC we have an agreement of what we understand to be EDP and RIS3. Then a bit the methodology of the report. I'm not sure if you have the report. You have the report. Okay. Then some results and very early policy recommendations, and finally some comments about the way forward. So obviously this process has been going on for already more than a year. Lina was explaining, and we basically come just after the report by Professor Hollanders on mapping of economic, basically economic, but also some hints of innovation and scientific potential. But Hugo worked on the most important data, which is added value, salaries, people employed. So actually what makes the real tissue of the economic activity in Moldova. So the objectives of the project were to...
Excuse me, where can we get that report from?
Hollanders or others?
No, Hollanders.
Noi să vă limit, noi de fapt la UNESCO de la Minister.
Oh, okay.
Deci, the report...
So it's internal and it has to be distributed internally. Okay.
Just to mention, the report produced by Hugo Hollanders was presented during the Moldova Business Week last year in October. So it was presented in front of 400 people from different institutions. Well, it was circulated among the institutions that were at that time involved in the project.
Thank you. So what we have done is starting from the preliminary priority areas that Hollanders and his colleagues defined, also in collaboration with some local experts, to a higher degree. So understand better what's inside them. Also identify the most relevant actors for EDP, meaning institutional and individual, so people. Also understand the collaboration patterns where they exist, who is working with whom, in what topics. Nationally, in Moldova, regionally, but also internationally, because obviously international partners are an important lever of internationalization, both in the public research sector, but also in the economic environment. And finally, from all of that, some basic conclusions that will lead to decision making in priority setting, first for EDP, but later for actual investment and policy definition, and also in terms of science and innovation policies and capacity building if necessary. This exercise is difficult everywhere. I mean, I was involved in 2013, for instance, in the definition of the RIS3 strategy in Catalonia. We now have much better data here in Moldova than we used to have for Catalonia. I mean, the advance of the technology and of the sources of data make it that every year it's easier and richer to do this kind of mapping exercises. So in this sense, I believe that you have a great opportunity to do a better job than we did 5 years ago. Why is this difficult? Because we have a few challenges which are transversal to everywhere and which I'm sure that you face every day, which is the access to granular, so detailed data, which is homogeneous, which you can compare one to each other, and which is updated, which is not 2 years old, like normal economic statistics. Second problem is how to integrate data from different sources and different policies. You have a national policy, you also receive European funding, you have the Academy of Science, you have now in the next months the agency. Normally, each of these institutions uses their own internal systems and they don't talk to each other. So if you want to understand, hey, who is working in that, you have to ask everyone. And then you have to make the effort to put together this data, which is highly intertwined, it's connected. You have actors here who receive funding from different places, also internal funding, you have to understand how these people is working. Also an important issue is that science and innovation, both in the public and the private sector, moves fast. So you are always working with classification systems that are in the past. You say in 2013 you defined these priority areas, and the content of these priority areas has changed. The vocabulary, what people is doing has changed. So in a way, you need to be able to understand content, to understand activities beyond the classification systems that you have in your data sources. Also, if possible, benchmarking. Benchmarking your reality with the reality of your colleagues and competitors in the environment. It's something that we have not done in this exercise. But luckily, as I said before, we have new opportunities, new capabilities that allow us to solve some of these issues. The first one is open government data. So open government is a methodology, is a principle of working within the government, with the stakeholders and with the citizens, and put available the data which normally is closed in the ministries and the agencies. By the way, the agency of patenting, the Academy of Science with this, it's very open. I mean, the quality of the systems, in the information systems that you have here, and how open they are, you are advanced. You are much better than most regions we have worked with. So in this sense, I think that you are already very ready to start connecting the data amongst them. Second is a field of artificial intelligence, which is the semantic web, which allows to very fast connect the meaning and the content of these data sets. Then data science to actually extract quantitative indicators, but also semantic content. So knowledge, real content from the sources, which then we can visualize with interactive tools that are much cheaper and much more powerful than a few years back. And finally, if we bring a social or a civic improvement, which is we are actually monitoring, not to understand how we spend every euro, how we spend every leu, what is people doing, but to actually learn in the process what we are doing and how can we improve our policy instruments, how can we improve the support to the institutions in the public sector, in the private sector, by understanding what are their struggles, what are their lines of opportunity, and this, again, with granular and fresh data. So the level of detail that you need and the rapid reaction that you need. So we'll enter right now into the methodology. This is a screenshot from Professor Hollander's report, which looked into economic data, added value, employment, salaries, exports, at the regional level and at the national level. He also looked into the bibliometric database of your information institute, and to innovation results in patents. A bit different data sources than what we used. And basically his team established 3 kinds of areas of opportunity. One were established industries, like big sectors. The second one were clusters, which in a way are, you know what clusters are, but smaller and connected and related to a single value chain or a few value chains. And then emerging industries, which is a way of looking into sectors transversally. We are used, and you know perfectly that all international and national statistics are defined according agriculture, manufacturing, services, and right now that's not true. Most companies have manufacturing capacities, service capacities, and if you say, well, a company that provides medical devices to hospitals is normally providing the product, is developing the product, is producing the product, but then is providing a wide range of services around them. So this is a way of looking at the same traditional sectors, but in terms of transversal value chains. So basically we took his indications, especially the larger industries, because they propose a larger base of data, and we looked into 4 data sources, 2 international and 2 national. The first one is scientific publications as indexed in Scopus from Elsevier. The number of records is obviously lower than the one that you have in your national bibliometric database, because obviously not all publications are internationally indexed. So here we are basically lacking publications in the social sciences, in the humanities, probably publications in different languages. So we have to understand the limitations of the analysis. It's always the limitations of the data you have. That's why it's so important to then have on the same room people who actually know what is happening from the day-to-day work and experience. The second is the European projects from an open data source from the European Commission. The third is the competitive national projects financed, awarded by the Moldovan Academy of Science, and which are available in a very nice format in the Expert Online website or database. And finally, national patent applications, which were provided, thank you very much, by AGEPI and the Chamber of Commerce. And to do the exercise, we followed 2 parallel methodologies. And first we will focus on the first methodology, then on the second, and then we will see the integrated results. The first methodology is, okay, let's take Professor Hollander's preliminary priority areas, which he defined 4 big ones, and then a few smaller ones, map those priorities to the data sources classification systems. If there's any doubt or question or problem, please stop me. I tend to talk very, very fast. So take Hollander's priority areas, map them to the taxonomies, the classification systems of the data sources that we just saw, and see what happens. So we start from Hollander's. The second one, we don't take Hollander's, we just looked directly at the data sources and see what happens. But we will focus on the first one. So basically we have an expert report which defined some initial preliminary priorities, and we have the databases of publications, projects, and patents, of which we extract some basic quantitative statistics. Well, we can move forward. So the big priorities that were defined by Hollanders, preliminary obviously, was agriculture and food processing, textile apparel, footwear and leather, ICT and energy. But he also defined a big list of other sectors which had activity but didn't consolidate so much according to the economic indicators. So we looked at the 3 data sets, publications, projects and patents, and we tried to cluster the other defined by Hollanders into similar priorities to the ones that he had defined in a first step. Why? Because when you look at different data sources, you see different rankings. You see different volumes of activity. So we were there, we had all the data, and we thought, better extend the analysis as much as we can, and then let the experts, the local institutions, work with what we have gathered. So from these statistics, we extended the initial priorities to a few new ones, 8 new ones, which is chemical industries, materials and nanotechnology, health, biomedicine and pharmaceuticals, production technology and heavy machinery, electric and electronic technologies, environmental industries, services, and utilities like water, waste, energy, vulcanized and fired materials, which is cement, concrete, blah, 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 the paper industry, and furniture. This is just taking the few priorities that Hollanders left below as others. So we end up with these 12 priorities that we use through the document. So then what do we do with this? We take these 12 labels, because they are just names, and we try to understand how to define perimeters in the data sources. So we look at pattern classification, bibliometric subject areas and subject fields. We look at the content of the projects, the content of the patterns, to define the perimeters of data, like for instance, the publication, the bibliometric subject area, material science, we put it here. The one medicine, we put it here, top down. And then we perform a specialization analysis. So what's the relative specialization of this priority at the regional level, at the institutional level, Academy of Science, universities, companies, and also through time. And this, we produce the report, we produce some interactive visualizations that we will see later. And then I would like to introduce a second technique that we are using in both approaches, which is topic modeling. Topic modeling is an artificial intelligence technique by which you look at the content of texts and you automatically extract the underlying topics, the underlying thematics that these texts are talking about. For this, we used the abstracts of publications, the descriptions of projects, and the descriptions of patents in English. Only the content in English. So basically, you see this thing in green, these small pieces of text in green, talk about topic, are contained in topic A. These things in purple and a bit of the green are contained in topic B. And these things in purple and the blue, smaller ones, are contained in topic C. What's the advantage of this? First, you are not using the classifications of the data sources. You are directly looking into the content. Second, you read how people talk. Because people in companies speak different from people in universities, speak different from people in research labs. So you basically extract content from the different ways of talking of people who later have to understand each other in the entrepreneurial discovery process. And third, you avoid problems like solar cell to gather energy from tumoral cell. So the word cell can have different meanings, and you can have the word cell in different topics accounting for the different meanings that words can have. So we saw the first approach. We took the priorities and we segmented the data according to the priorities, and then we did the analysis. In the second approach, we just did the analysis straight away, without preliminary priorities, to see what happened. In the end, in any case, we used both approaches to have a final insight or conclusion. What are the main limitations of the work that we have done? First, Moldovan science and innovation actors are very centralized in two dimensions. Regionally, geographically centralized, so most of the actors, both in the public and the private sector, are in the Chisinau region, and also concentrated in a few institutions. The academy is very big, although we have institutes. We believe that although regional strategies are completely necessary to develop place-based development, to support local economies, we would advise to understand the knowledge actors as transversal and available to all the country. It's a geographically compact country, so we shouldn't say, hey, we have this here, these people should work with these people only. No, let's understand the whole knowledge base as a single capacity. But at the same time, we have been informed by the local experts that universities in the regions are building their capacities of R&D, of collaboration with companies, of clustering in specific sectors. So I think that we should also support this place-based development of the research and innovation sectors. Second, some preliminary priority areas, when we mapped the classification systems, had very few records. So for instance, textiles, vulcanized materials, paper industry, furniture, they don't appear very much in the data sources. This can have different reasons. First is that the data sources are science-oriented, basic science-oriented normally, no? The second is that maybe these companies or institutions are not so innovative. And the third is that maybe they are doing innovation but not writing it down, not necessarily asking for projects or publishing or patenting. This is something that should be assessed in the EDP. Connected to this one, we have found a bias against non-technological innovation. So I guess that for historical reasons in the science environment and also in the economic environment, there has been a historical specialization in the hard sciences, in physics, chemistry, materials. Also, we don't have the data for humanities, social sciences. So we should learn from you, what do you believe of that? So basically, maybe creative and experience-based industries, non-technological innovation, they must have a role, they should have a role in regional and national specialization. We cannot say anything about that because we don't see it in the data. And finally, we have done this topic modeling, which is a text mining artificial intelligence technique, only on the records in English. So we are very sorry to say that we didn't run it into the Academy of Science projects because the descriptions were only in Romanian. So if we wanted to look at the full granularity of knowledge, an option would be to translate these descriptions of the projects and run the topic modeling all together. Finally, what have been the results of the project? The results have been 3 deliverables. The first one is the report, where the methodology is explained and the main limitations and conclusions are also presented. The second is a web application with some interactive tools that we will see in a few minutes, so that you can explore the data in at the level of detail that you deem necessary. And finally, a few Excel files with a list of organizations and individuals ranked by contribution and classified by preliminary priority areas. So basically, we can come back to a structure of data like this one, and you say, who is working in energy in the region north? So you go to the Excel, you filter by region, you filter by priority, and you get the list of the top contributors. In publications and patents, you would have the name of these people. In projects, European projects, not but Academy of Science projects, yes, I guess, no? That is the principal investigator. So basically, it's a tool that once you start organizing EDP, you can actually look who are the main actors according to the data sources that we have compiled. Okay. So then some initial results and then some recommendations. This is the first approach. So using the classification by Hollanders. You can see the list of priorities. And the bars are the number of contributions, the number of records by source. So you can see agriculture and food processing. You see a lot of this gray, which is patents, and a bit of publications, which is exactly the reverse pattern to what you see in chemical industries, materials, and nanotechnology. And this is an important feature of the results, is that not all priorities are the same. Some priorities are more based on industrial innovation as expressed by patents, like agriculture, health, biomedicine, production technology, and some others are more connected to the science activities. Well, in the report you can also see the temporal evolution of each of these priorities. And this is a visualization of the result of the topic modeling, this text mining technique. In this case, we are in the health, biomedicine, and pharmaceuticals, as an example, priority. We run the text mining topic extraction algorithm, and we see lists of keywords. Every topic is a list of keywords that represent a coherent group or a coherent content. For instance, here is compound, extract, mass, sheet, preparation, temperature, synthesis. This is about biotechnology. The second is child risk, pulmonary disorder, pain, blood. This is pathology. Tumor administered, abdominal cancer, hepatic. This is clinical research. So you can look at actually what is people writing about, what is people saying. And again, in blue, we have the patent content, and in gray, we have the publication content. So, tumor, administered abdominal, hepatic surgery, which we understand something about medical devices, if you read at the is basically coming from patents and not from publications in the public research sector. On the contrary, compound, acid, cell, concentration, bind, ion, biological synthesis, which is life science research, obviously it's clustered around the actors which do basic research. We have another funny one, bone, suture, incision, implant, muscle, dental, which is a lot about prosthetics. Prosthetics is a field of the industry that we saw strong at the national level. And for each of these priorities, you can find this analysis. So, from Hollander's priorities, extended by us, we can say this. Well, these top priorities, intermediate priorities, low priorities, we're not saying it's top because they are more important. It's top because they have more records. We see them more in the data sets. We have some which are more science-oriented, we have more which are technology-oriented, so come from patents, and we have a few which are quite balanced. And luckily, from these three below, and furniture, which is not here, vulcanized, textile, paper industry, there is no data. We cannot say much about them. So it's very important that we understand that the fact that they are not here doesn't mean that they are not important. It's coming from my personal experience regional experience in Catalonia. Catalonia was for 200 years a textile manufacturing region. It was very important. It was called the Manchester of Spain. This goes well until the markets are open. So you open the markets in the 60s, 70s, and then completely in the 80s, the manufacturing companies disappeared. Everybody we are losing textile. It was the first sector in terms of employment and added value. Disappeared. All the production went in the 70s and 80s to Morocco, to China, to Turkey. In the meanwhile, there were some people who were doing a lot of innovation. Mango, Desigual, in Galicia, Zara. They were transforming the value chains and creating value. And now, 25 years later, some of these companies are putting a season every month or every 2 weeks. They are changing the season, it's called? No, they are changing the season every 15 days. So they are doing design cycles of 1 month, 2 months, and then they need people producing there locally. Because if they have to wait a container to come from China, which is 35 days, it's already too late. The t-shirt about, I don't know, the Ramones, it's already too old after 2 months. So in a way, the lack of activity doesn't mean that the sector is doomed, is going to fail. But in any case, we cannot say much because we don't see them. It is your job to go into the terrain, to talk to the people who are working in these sectors. Are they innovating? Are they struggling? Why are they struggling? So in Catalonia, there was an important cluster policy in the 90s, and one of the most important clusters is there are several. There is the textile production, there is the design, there is the commercialization. There are different clusters which work, and they work together. In any case, Mango, which is the biggest company, is in no cluster. They are good enough to go by themselves. The others no. The others need this policy support. Well, coming back to the priorities, the ones that we see more, it's the one about chemical industries, materials, and technology, which is a bit declining, not declining like that, it's a bit declining. And the health, biomedicine, pharmaceuticals, and agriculture and food processing, which both are growing. In the middle, we have electrical and electronic technologies, ICT, energy, environmental industries, services and sciences, and production technology, which basically are stable. What we have seen is that patent numbers are going down in the last 10 years, which is happening in many places. I think it's not specific of the Moldovan situation, while publications, or at least internationally indexed publications, are going up. So in a way, what happens is that the technological oriented, that's the opposite case, sorry. And then, coming from the topic modeling, text mining exercise, we see, and in the report you have the full detail, we can see what these there's 3 examples, for instance, agriculture, energy, and health. What are they talking about? So in the more technological innovation oriented, there's a lot of farming, so agricultural improvement. There's a lot about food processing, alcohol production, that we were very glad to, yesterday night we had a very nice wine from a region here in northeast, and food industry machinery. Obviously, who is processing food and producing alcohol? It's quite big equipment, so they are sourcing it locally in many cases. And in terms of scientific research topics, there is biotechnology and genetics. So genetics of the agricultural species, obviously, both farming and animal husbandry. And in biotechnology, there's quite a lot of processing optimization, bioreactors, I don't know, I'm no expert, so. In energy, there's electrotechnical equipment, for electricity generation, biofuels. So in the connection with these two, it's biomass, biofuels, it's also a connection, a transversal connection. In terms of scientific research, very important, almost everywhere. Quantum and nanotechnology, spectrometry, biomass, energy production, and electric motors. Obviously, some of the topics of the content are transversal. They can appear in several priorities. In health biomedicine, we see quite a lot of pharmaceutical products and processes, so the production process, post-operative medical treatments, surgery, prosthetics and hospital equipment. This is a sector that, in terms of patenting, is going a bit down. So we have to understand why, because from outside it looks like a nice sector to focus on. No? In terms of scientific research, there is quite a lot of health policy and quality, also in some occasions connected to international projects, because there are some issues of public policy which are international projects. Biotech, again, so we have a connection between these two that talk the same language, and pathology and clinical research. 97% of the records are in Chisinau. That's a fact. 95, 97, 99. From the remaining few percent points, you cannot say much, because 3 publications more, 7 patents more can change really what you're seeing. But with all these caveats, in Centro, sorry, we are new to the country, we arrived yesterday, so anything that we say too much, you stop us. In Centro, a bit more of agriculture and food processing, health, biomedicine and pharmaceuticals, I guess connected to the local university and hospital. In North, environmental industry, services and sciences, agriculture again. In South, really there were almost no records. In Caucasia, chemical industries, materials and technology, and electrical and electrotechnic technologies, electronic technologies. In any case, we wanted to report that because we had found that, but it has to be taken really with caution. In terms, so we were also asked by the Commission to look at what are the international collaborations. International collaborations mainly happen in 2 places: publications, scientific publications, and projects from ACE 2020. So we looked into the priorities again. I'm sorry because it's very small. I'm really, really sorry. And the countries in vertical. So in aggregate terms, Germany is the country with which you collaborate the most. Second, United States. Third, Russian Federation. Fourth, France, Spain, Ukraine, Poland, Italy, United Kingdom, Switzerland. And here you can see some specificities. For instance, in agriculture and food processing, Italy is important, which is nice. Russia and Germany are more or less, but Italy really is one of the biggest. In ICT, France. This is probably connected to some European projects about supercomputing, ICT infrastructures for research, but not only. Health biomedicine. Here, obviously, like everywhere in the world, most common collaboration with the United States and the UK. So in a way, the capacities of the countries also translate in what you collaborate. In Europe, the biggest country for health is UK, by difference, and increasing, so it makes sense that you collaborate the most with them. The biggest collaboration is scientific, basically in scientific activity, chemical, materials, nanotechnology. Here, very big, Germany, United States, Russia, and a bit smaller, Poland is the one with you collaborate the most. And I believe that's the summary. You can also have the detail of that in the other deliverables. So we're gonna move that. We're gonna go back. And here I would like to show the interactive tool, which is a web application that we've developed last month, which presents all the data, not from topic modeling, all the data as it comes from the priorities by Hollanders, and as it is classified by the own classification systems of the data sources. We will see it now. and you can play with it in, well, it's, I don't know the link right now, it's, so here's a small explanation of what we do and what kind of data is there. If you need additional information about what decisions have been made in order to present the data, you can have it here in Read More. But if we access the tool, so basically you have four features. The first one is selecting the data source, publications, European projects, national projects, and patents, and filtering according to preliminary priorities, to the internal classification, to region, and to the type of organization, universities, Academy of Science, other, etc. Then you have a collaboration network, which you can play with. This is obviously the Academy of Sciences. This is, I guess, Nicola Testemital State University. But the most important is the summaries below. So, for instance, for the whole Moldova, you have 4,000 publications and 181 organizations publishing. So this is scientific contributions. And you can understand, by clicking here below, you can explore what these people is doing. I'm very sorry because it's too small. You have computer now. So, to explore specialization, you can look, okay, from all the publications that we have, how do they classify? The biggest one is chemical industries materials, the second is no priority, so other topics like high energy physics, humanities, social sciences, things that we didn't classify anywhere, electrical, health, ICT, etc. And you can also look at that by the bibliometric categories, in this case, which is the original classification system. So material science, engineering. So if you look at Moldova in Scopus, in the international database, the first is material science, then engineering, physics and astronomy, chemistry, medicine, computer science, mathematics. So it's very technological, science-oriented. If you look at social sciences and humanities, it's really below. Then you can look at who are the top organizations. And here you can see how centralized is the... Most Academy of Science institutes are in Chisinau. We know that there are 2 or 3 outside. Here they are clustered together in Chisinau because of the data. The data is structured this way. So obviously Chisinau is almost 100%. Academy of Science is the top player, then Nicola Testemital, then the Technical University, and much smaller other ones. University of Balti, the State University of Agriculture, etc. And finally, you can explore the external partners, and as we said, it's Germany, United States, Russia, France, Spain. That's just the summary. The interesting part is the filter. So you say, no, I want health, biomedicine and pharmaceuticals, and I want to understand what's the network. And here we see that the Academy of Science is still the central player, but Nicola Testemital is, no, it's the opposite. Look, in health, obviously, Nicola Testemital is the main player. So you should center EDP around this actor, and the small networks, the Republican Clinical Hospital, the German Diagnostic Center, the Institute of Pneumology, Kiel, Draganiuk. I guess that you understand, you know these institutions, and this can help you structure EDP. Don't forget that you also have the Excel files with the whole information about institutions and individuals. That is the last step. And we haven't looked at the map. The map, you can look at it in 2 ways. First is how much the region contributes to the country. So again, 95% is, or 99%, 95% is Chisinau. Chisinau, but you can also look at relative to the regional contribution. So you see the opposite. And then you see that in Sud, 18% of the contributions are health, biomedicine, and pharmaceuticals. You can also explore that by the subject areas. So I don't know if you want to know about chemical engineering, filtration and separation. Let's say that you are working in water treatment, so you want to understand who is working in filtration and separation method, blah, blah. You click here, and then you see the two people that have worked on it, which is the Nicotes de Mitano and the Academy of Science. You should look to the data set to know exactly who is that. So this is publications. Then you can look at European projects, which is a smaller network. Oh. Okay, 68 projects. This is a small number. We believe that it's bigger. We have to check that. But basically, you have received from the data we gathered from the European portal. Maybe it's wrong. 68 projects, 25 organizations, 6 million, with the main partners being the Academy of Science, the Center for Academy of Science, RENAM, Technical University, SHS, and you can see who are you partnering with. And in fact, in terms of projects, the biggest partner is Romania. I guess it makes a lot of sense due to the geographic Romania, also Greece. So I guess that here the Eastern European networks of collaboration really appear. Then we have the national projects. An important feature of national projects is that I think that we have 1,200 projects from the last 10 years. Only 6 are collaborative. No?
No, it's not.
It's not like that? There are more collaborative projects.
We have a lot of 60 projects per year, bilateral and multilateral with different countries.
No. Okay, with international partners. I was talking about national collaboration.
Yes.
They are also multilateral. Well, here it's a problem with the data. We'll have to work with that. But in any case, the main issue with national projects is that they are classified according to strategic directions, which are quite big. They are very wide in terms of coverage. So if you want to look at who is working in new materials, etc., we have 200 projects, a bit more activity in North. Moldova State University is the first one, Technical University of Moldova is the second one. And here we do have the distribution of Academy of Science institutes. So for international databases, as you know, all the Academy of Science is clustered together. Here, with the national data sources, patents and projects, they are broken apart. So an exercise that you could maybe think of is also classify the international data sets according to the local institutional realities. Finally, we also have
Sorry, just to come to this question. Do you mean collaborating internally or also with partners from abroad? Because
internally.
Internally, deci doamna și era vorba de parteneriate intern, în sensul că între două instituții din țara.
So, most projects, as we saw the data, most projects go to a principal investigator and his group or his institute. And they are not promoting so much, from what we understood, horizontal collaboration again between universities, hospitals, the academy, etc. The patents network is too big. There are too many patents and it's very broken down. So I'm not sure it's very useful in terms of. There's also it's quite a look. The internet works very well because it's a heavy data set. You can see here the multiple relationships, there are a lot of individual persons patenting. And here we anonymized because we don't want to see the names of the people, because obviously it's against the law. So you will see a lot of individuals that in the Excel files you can actually gather. And in terms of patents, it's interesting that the first area is agriculture and food processing. So what we see in science is not exactly the same that we see in the industrial innovation. The first one, agriculture and food processing. The second one is the health industries, basically pharmaceutical industry. And these medical devices, prosthetics areas. Then yes, quite a lot of chemical industries, materials and nanotechnology. Production technology, there's a lot about machinery, process machinery, heavy equipment, and then you go down from there. And who is patenting the most? Moldova State University and the Technical University of Moldova, which were quite smaller in publications. So this also is a tool to understand the different profiles of the institutions that you obviously know very well because you have been here and you know these institutions, but having these in terms of detail, it's quite nice. If you look at who is patenting the most in health, biomedicine, and pharmaceutical, then it's Nicola Testemitanu, the Institute of Genetics, Moldova State, Institute of Chemistry, a few people, individual applicant. So this was just to show the interactive tool. Do you have any questions or?
Is it finished?
Presentation?
Yeah.
Well, there are a few slides more. But if you have a question, better to.
No, yeah. Perfect.
So, a few conclusions that we already advanced is that the Moldova knowledge base is very centralized, so it should be available to all regions. In the EDP, a strong effort should be made to access new actors. The fact that the system is so centralized means that you have to do an extra effort to see who is outside the usual networks. Then we believe that it's necessary, if you go for a regional development policy, to support the local actors, universities, the few institutes which are decentralized, and build the capacities of subnational administrations to support S3. Also, if it's already the case, I don't say nothing. From the data, I would say support non-technological research and innovation activities, and support the sectors which are based on non-technological capacities, like design, some of the textiles and furniture and leather, tourism. So also there's a lot of innovation and a lot of possibilities for differentiation and added value in these sectors that are completely disappeared from the data sources. And unless we are wrong with the information, as the lady noted, define more, or assess at least, study the establishment of more policy instruments supporting collaboration and networking. This is the Excel files. It's an extraction of the Excel files. You have the name of the person, the priority to which they are connected, the organization, the city, and how many contributions they made. So if you order the data by this column, you will see who are the main contributors in each priority. Then, although we were not so convinced of doing this because we believe that it's your job, we have done at least following Hollander's EDP, following Hollander's preliminary priorities, a selection of the areas or domains that we believe could be more powerful or stronger to start EDP. But we have divided them in two dimensions. The first one is sector innovation, more connected to technology, to industrial innovation, and the second is the knowledge base. I don't have an opinion about that. Many regions in Europe have chosen to have compact priorities, which put together science and innovation. Others have defined vertical priorities and then horizontal priorities. Well, that's up to you. But we think that there is a great potential and growing potential in agriculture and food industry, biomedicine and health industries. There is a very important manufacturing sector, which is in a way more fragmented. So I think that it's the moment right now to understand what is actually transversal in this fragmented manufacturing sector. And then a knowledge base, which is sometimes vertical, but sometimes it's quite horizontal. In agriculture and food industry, you have all the research around agricultural improvement and around biotechnology. In manufacturing, you have a huge research base in terms of new manufacturing processes, surface chemistry, nanotech, advanced materials. This is, I guess, it's historical evolution of the science ecosystem, but this is the biggest knowledge base and the most active in international activities is this one. In biomedicine, obviously you have everything connected to life science, pharmacology, clinical research. Again, biotechnology, we said that it's one of the clear transversal topics. More connected to agriculture and food industry, all connected to bioprocesses, bioreactors, supporting the food industry, alcohol and food processing. And then you have another area of basically scientific expertise, which is photonics, electronics, mobile devices, and computer science. It is true that you have both an application and algorithmics research, but you also have the hardware research in terms of electronics, instrumentation. I guess instrumentation, you have an instrumentation institute connected, I guess, to the scientific equipment from the past, and growing research in photonics, which basically, photonics, nano, quantum technology, surface chemistry, these are all quite connected disciplines, of which you have very visible activity in international terms. And since we are not never sure about what we say, we added maybe a fourth one, which personally or here we believe it's important, is the public utilities, water, waste, energy, which are maybe not tradable sectors, so it's not a sector that will you will export a lot or become an international actor, but is affecting the lives of everyday people in terms of environment. So if we understand the European Commission's motto of smart growth, inclusive growth, and sustainable growth, in a way, the inclusive and sustainable could be, in a way, covered by health and sustainable public utilities. But obviously, these are a lot of topics, so in the next step, we can select if we take one or if we will build some transversal ones, more granular ones, and this is up to discussion. So now, yes, it's finished.
Yes, of course.
I would like to make a general remark and ask a few questions. So as a general remark, thank you very much. Obviously, as this tool is refining, it will become an increasingly useful tool for planning and for strategy. So very nice job, thank you very much. It's also correct philosophically because, as you know, this part of the world has been defined by a very rigid planification of things in the Soviet time, as opposed to much more liberal economies, such as the United States economy, which was defined by a very high entropy, very high, very little planning. So this seems to be some sort of a middle road, which is very coherent with what goes on European scale. Now, there is one inconsistency which I would like, maybe you want to check it. So you notice that collaborations with Romania rank number 1, yet in terms of publication together with Romania, it's nowhere in your chart. So that seems to be an inconsistency. Maybe you want to look into that. I don't know.
No, it's different. So you collaborate a lot with Romanian and European projects, which is not your choice. I mean, basically, they are policies which are defined at the European level.
Yeah, but they don't seem to result in publications. Okay, so it's just something. Okay, now 3 more well-defined questions. Number 1 question: do you know what is the most world-renowned Moldovan product? If you have to pick one, what would you give?
Wine.
No. No. Did you ever hear Numa 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 Ye? You hear this?
Music.
No, not music. This particular song. Okay. So, this is not a joke. This is not a joke. When I was living in Japan 10 years ago, kids in the railways were dancing on this song. I don't know the figures, but this song has probably had very little investment, very high revenue. The potential for cultural products. So anyone that lives for a while in this country sees that the potential for cultural products is huge here. It does not appear in your charts, and I'm not sure how it could appear according to the methodology you have used. I just wanted to raise this point that somehow this analysis missed an important aspect, which both can be a revenue generator, but also it could be a very good advertising for the country. I mean, these things bring more advertising to the country than any strategy you can imagine of. Question number 2. It's clear how you brought this analysis, but how would this match with how would match your analysis with the GDP contributors? So in other words, you take the sectors that you analyzed, you go to maybe a bit more finely grained than the big sectors, and then you look if the priorities which you find are coherent with the GDP, with those that contribute to the GDP. For example, as far as I know, the biggest contributor to the Moldovan GDP is Orange Telecom. It doesn't appear as such here. It appears in electric and electronic technologies.
ICT, I would say.
Okay, ICT. So maybe from your analysis, which again, it's very impressive, maybe it would be interesting to match it with well-defined, with those that contribute to the GDP, and then to see how do these things match and how we can project this into the future. And third point that I would be very interesting, at least I think it could be very interesting to see, is that of course we want to move. Okay, let me rephrase this. It is clear that by a steady state improvement, it will take a very long time to Moldova in order to reach the European countries that we are aiming for. So if we just raise, let's say, 1%, 2%, 3% every year, it will take a long time. So what Moldova is interested in doing is finding that niche of development which can produce a huge jump. Just like you mentioned in Catalonia, you have this Desigual, you have Zara, and these guys, of course, create so much added value that, you know. So, what would also be interesting is to look at those sectors that have a very high technological content. Because of course, agriculture and food processing is very interesting, it's very, you know, everybody here in this country thinks about agriculture, is very proud about agriculture. But then the question is, you know, this reaches a steady state and you only have that much land, you only have that much productivity, you cannot go much higher after a while. So, unless you go technological and unless you, right, but even they have reached steady state. So how would you match these fields with their respective technological content so that everything you create has a much higher value which comes from the technological content within? So these two matchings, I think, would be very interesting with the GDP, those that produce GDP and those that produce technology, high technology content, products or services.
So, starting this report already builds on an analysis such as this.
Mm-hmm.
So, Professor Hollander's report, he defines thresholds, absolute and relative thresholds in terms of, let me go back to economic potential, so it's turnover, employment. So he defines critical mass, volume and relative importance, and specialization. And also he looks at wages, supposing that higher wages mean higher productivity and a relative need of skills. Because obviously if you had enough people, you would lower wages, this is natural. It's very important to say that both reports have been done before the first innovation survey. So in a way, the relative innovation, be it technological or non-technological activity, right now I think in these months, either the results are there or have been published. Or
we have our colleagues from the statistical department and they will present the outcomes.
That's great.
Yeah, but it will be the next presentation actually.
Perfect. About the question of culture, well, the first is that one song is one song. We had Macarena, and but it wasn't in the presentation. Here we used the term cultural, creative, and experience-based industries. Mm-hmm. So this is something that is necessary, and we believe very much in it. So especially if you think of,
but it's hard to quantify.
It's hard to quantify. In fact, if you look at the music sector in the statistics, you probably don't have it. You have a cultural, and about kickstarting or leap jumping innovation. Well, this is what EDP is about. I mean, the question is that EDP can be understood different ways. I focus on the entrepreneurial part. So growth is made by people who takes risks according to their knowledge of their environment, their personal situation, and some contextual. In a way, the example of Mango and Desigual was exactly that. I mean, whatever you say about the whole, because if you look at innovation, the percentage of companies that innovated in textiles in the 80s was probably 3%, 5%. Because they were using the machines from 20 years ago, they didn't have technical capacities. It was 3 companies it was 3 people, in fact, you know the names.
Yeah.
For these people, you know Amancio Ortega, Isaac, and it's people. So in a way, in terms of policy, what you can do is support, train, promote exchange, but
and hope they pop up.
Simplify regulations, open markets,
Yes, true.
but that's exactly American. In a way, America obviously has Coca-Cola, has this, but also has DARPA, which is, DARPA is the defense agency, research agency, which basically 60% of MIT's budget, MIT, the most well-known university, comes straight from DARPA. So entrepreneurship and government support are both important. And the question about GDP and the whole policy model is that you should both look at the reality and try to pull the reality. But this comes from a previous paradigm of much more vertical industrial policy, which has failed in many countries. Not in all, because in some countries it has worked, but in a way this is exactly, you build the underlying capacities, you improve the education system, you improve the regulation, you improve the management and the strategy of the research institutions, which is already happening, which is happening obviously in Moldova. And then when someone happens, you don't smash it you just give him the capacities. I wouldn't know much more to say.
Yeah, if I can add something on the project, actually it is due to the fact that of the specificity of FP7 and Horizon 20 project in which Moldova was involved. Because if you look at the statistics, for FP7 we were 30-40% of more there were these which are policy related ones. So that's why there are a lot of partnerships, a lot of events, but there are no publications because it was mostly at the level of the policy makers. This is one. Concerning the creative industries, I spoke just recently with the State Secretary on Culture from the Ministry of Education, Culture and Research. We will try to do an innovation camp with the National Association of Creative Industries companies, because in order to identify these weak signals on creative industry, because there is also cartoon industry, but we need to see the granularity of all these projects. In order to this, I think that we will have maybe with the S3 platform to have an innovation camp dedicated specifically to creative industry and to project a little bit which will be the future trends and how we can come to a topic that can bring together business side, research and innovation, society, and so on and so forth. But this is a picture. This is a nutshell of what is now evidence-based, let's say, context. So that's why we did it.
It's a very interesting work.
It's okay. So if there are no more questions, or maybe we can discuss this later on because the weeks will be, and also. Just going a bit ahead, tomorrow we will have also some so-called simulation sessions, and we will bring all of you together with the foreign experts in order to look further on the ADP process. So we are counting on your active participation. Now I would like to offer the stage to our colleagues from the National Statistical Bureau. Actually, as Enrique mentioned, there is a lot of data on public R&D, what is funded, who is funding, and so on and so forth. And up to now, we had no data on business sector, so we are very lucky today to have the presentation from the Statistical Office on this. And I would like also to greet Mr. Andrei Crăciun from the Statistical Office, who was assisting us in the first phase of the process, working with Hugo Colander on the economic data. So thank you very much also for using this occasion. Mr. Dimitri Kalancu is head of Statistical Infrastructure Department. You have more time.
Hello, my name is Dimitri Kalancu, and I'm going to have to make a brief presentation about innovation statistics. So the main objectives of innovation survey is to describe the innovation activity in enterprises from Moldova by collecting data from based on innovative enterprises, define the innovation types and innovators, determine turnover from new or significantly improved products, and the effects of innovation. The survey is so the coverage. The enterprises that are more or equal or more 10 employers. NACE activities are basically only the mandatory kind of activities for this kind of survey. And the reference period is 2015 and 16. The collection method was the paper on and e-reporting, and we are collecting about 20% by this e-reporting system. The number of respondents is about 3,200, and we had a really high response rate. So developing the questionnaire and definitions, we are mainly based on regulation, European Commission Regulation 995 from 2012, questionnaire from Community Innovation Survey, and the Oslo Manual 3rd edition. We also had technical assistance from Statistic Sweden and Statistic Romania. Main variables are the number of innovating enterprises that introduced the new or significantly improved products for the market or only the enterprises, turnover from innovation related to the new or significantly improved products that are new for the market, or the ones that are not new for the market and only for the enterprise. Number of innovative enterprises, innovation expenditure, and number of innovation activity enterprises that were involved in innovation cooperation, and number of innovating enterprises that developed innovation by itself or together with institution or other enterprises. Here we have some results from the survey. As I mentioned before, we had 3,233 enterprises in the survey, from which innovative enterprises are only 673 enterprises. That's about 20% from enterprises. This table is rather complex. So here we have innovative enterprises by kind of activity. We see that in industry and services there are no big differences, but if we look by kind of activities, we can notice manufacturing that has 48%, and from services wholesale trade that have higher weight. Next table is number of innovative enterprises by size class and development regions. As mentioned before, we see a lot of enterprises concentrated in Chisinau, followed by North and Center. And if you look in Chisinau, mainly there are more service innovation, but in Center and North we see more in industry enterprises that perform some innovation. Structured by innovation enterprise by size class. Well, by numbers there are mostly small enterprises. And number of innovative enterprises by how they develop these innovations. Only for innovation by product and innovation process innovation. From the graph we see that mostly enterprises develop innovation by itself. And for next plans is to have a publication of innovation and statistics yearbook, to revise the questionnaire for the next or for the survey, to make a training workshop in the regional statistics before the launching, develop my metadata and a quality report for the survey. Any
Can
questions?
you go back a little bit of the fields of innovation? This one. But you have also some disaggregated data, yeah? More in depth on the industries.
Yes. Yes, of course.
You have of that?
Yes.
Because for the specialization, this is very important to go deep and to
Yes,
see
for
the
each enterprise we have the NACE code, level four digits.
For
So the lowest level of max. Here is aggregated data.
I was just speaking with Elena because maybe we will come back to the discussion with Hugo Hollanders because now he is an expert to Eurostat on country innovation survey, but also he's now working on the EU clusters observatory.
And we are still in contact with him, and as we discussed previously, but this is very important component which was lacking previously. So now we could add up this to the analysis. So we could share the results of this survey that could accomplish the exercise.
Yeah, and also you mentioned about this workshop. Maybe we can join a little bit forces for the workshop on regional statistics. So maybe we can also contribute here with some expertise, and because this is very important. I mean also to maybe to contribute a little bit on the next questionnaire if there is some interest for the smart specialization.
Yes, for the first time we took only the mandatory kinds of activity. There were no agriculture, health, and other services. And from indexes or indicators, we also took only these 9 or 10 mandatory indicators. So, because it's the first time for those.
But this is extremely interesting because it nicely complements what we were missing from our data sources, because if you look at this, you see that the difference between Chisinau and the other regions is not as big as we saw with publication records and project records. So, I mean, this of course adds elements to the EDP reflection that now has to carry on.
The survey is going to be repeated?
Yes, biannual. As in Europe.
It is possible to enlarge a little bit the number of questions that you are including. I was thinking about the fact that you are still missing very important things like, for example, who are the founders of the companies, the entrepreneurs? Are there young people, females? How they are capitalizing the company? What kind of collaboration they have with research organization? If they have a contract, what would be the average amount of this? This kind of information are very useful when we are going to discuss about the process of smart specialization. I don't know to what extent this could be, let's say, a complementary activity from someone else, not to mix it, but I see that you have a very good rate of response, which encourages me to understand you have a path to go, that the company is recognized, and it would be very good to use to bring also this kind of information on board.
So part of this information regarding the founders, we already have from Agency of Services. Yes, Agency of
Public service.
Yes. They have name of the founder, age, and from other research we can get the level действия.
Training, education.
Yes, education level, some level. So part of this information we already have. For the further, for the next questionnaire, of course we can look for the new questions. Well, we are in planning now. So, for the first.
This is, I think, very important, and it completes the entire picture. I think it's really great.
Yeah.
We succeeded to have the data. Mai sunt câteva întrebări, poate?
Well, to answer the previous question of the person, Mr.
From you,
Yeah.
you high-level advisor for education and research, yeah?
If you go to the previous table, the one of the sectors, well, if you divide the second column by the first column, you can have a view of which are the more innovative sectors.
You divide
The second column by the first column.
Okay,
You have
so
the ratio,
per
the ratio of
enterprise.
innovative companies, which obviously seems quite high in manufacturing. Seems
Well, this is a general question. Isn't this patent, when you look at patents, isn't this a bit misleading? Because, for example, in ICT, it's, I'm in the board of an institute where the guy developed a algorithm that is used by Intel in all their processors right now, and he doesn't make a penny because he couldn't patent it. I mean, it's not something patentable. So, isn't looking at patents, if you look at the ICT industry, isn't this misleading? I'm not an expert, so I'm asking.
It is in Europe more than in America, because the patent.
So it's underrepresented. So ICT, it's underrepresented. There's an underrepresentation of ICT in the patents, right?
This is one of the issues that we are not no expert in patents. Maybe the Romanian experts know it better, but it's you can patent more algorithmics in the US than in Europe. It is good and bad. I mean, obviously that's not the only problem with patent statistics. There are many other problems. It's that some sectors do not patent, and they can be super innovative. So in a way, no data source gives you a full answer, and it's very important that these innovation surveys are super important at the policy level. But then there's another way of surveying, which is the decentralized activity of the knowledge actors. So
yeah, for example, also I think there's a misrepresentation of the health sector, because a lot of these papers, articles that you're citing are very probably clinical trials. So essentially, its legislation is much more flexible here than in other parts of the world, and therefore there are many companies that run clinical trials here. So in fact, you're looking at one single thing, clinical trials, right? So
it has to be research.
So basically, take-home lesson is that it's a very good start, but one has to go much more into detail of every single aspect you're looking at, so that the granularity is much better and you have a better flavor.
In fact, one thing is knowing that some sectors are innovative. Much more important is knowing who is innovative and with what demands, what are their struggles, what are their challenges, what are their needs. And this is something that cannot be done from a statistics office.
Right,
it has to be done from the technology transfer offices, from the research groups. So in a way, decentralization of the capacities to interact with companies is fundamental. In a way, the best person to interact with a company is the director of the group, research group, R&D group, that could contact with them. So you have to be an expert to contact. So in a way, giving all the actors, the individuals that we find in the datasets, giving them, motivating them, training them, and giving them the support to themselves, understand what's their industrial environment, go ask them, it's the key. And that's what we struggle the most, everywhere, in all regions. It's what we struggle the most with. It's putting them together and putting the right person together with the right person, because there is only one person who makes decisions at the group level and only one person who makes decisions at the company level. You have to put those people together, they have to understand each other, they have to speak the same language. So in a way, it's not only about decentralizing into companies, it's also about the granularity to reach the people, which are basically the only thing that can make collaboration and development and entrepreneurship grow. So in a way, it's about the people. You know it better than us, it's about the people.
Also, maybe to complement, I would like also to remind that Hugo Hollanders and series, they work with data. They work with data which you make it available for them. And now we are coming to the time that we have to work with stakeholders and to discuss this data. That we need some evidence-based to start with discussion. So I think this is a good launch, and thank you for your questions. And we are just take the opportunity once we have them here to ask it directly and to clarify the thoughts.
Yeah, actually, this is a pilot project that it was already mentioned. Our idea is that in the future, the ownership will go to the public institutions, to the local ones. So that's why we are interested also to create capacities for the National Bureau of Statistics, for example, to let's say, to to gather the right data for the process, also for the ministry and the agency, how to interpret and use further data for the policy making. So now also this visualization tool can be used by Moldovan authorities, yeah, which are, yes, and it's open to
It's
be
open.
used by, So these are tools developed, but further on the process should go to the national authorities, because ADP, Entrepreneurial Discovery Process, this is a continuous process, as our colleagues will tell us further on. This is not one-time activity. It should be continued. The policymakers should be fully engaged, should have the ownership of the process. They should look at these weak signals, for example, in order to properly monitor and evaluate the implementation of the activities, because the outcome of all this process, as I personally perceive it, is not a strategy. This is further activities, further projects, which will be based on the strategy and which will be based on these niches of smart specialization. This is important for business sector and for the research and innovation side. Because a nice strategy, we have a lot of them. We have very wide priorities which fits everyone, usually. So the most important is to transpose these niches into very concrete projects and activities. Ravi, would you like to add something, or just?
I want first to congratulate you for the good analytics. I know from our experience in Romania, it's very difficult to put together across publication, patents, and economy. That's in different words, and you have to meet these. And you manage to put it into a visual, interactive tool. I would like to stress that this tool is useful for the business sector as such, not only for a decision. So our experience from Romania shows that this is not mainly only a project of data gathering from the field and somebody is aggregating decision. It's a process of reflection into the community. So people see themselves in that picture and say, I'm here, and these are my neighbors. My neighbors are collaborating with this. Am I in this game? Why am I not in this game? And so on. So opening a reflexive process using this tool in the community, people understand that there is a place with this information, maybe gradually add new information, put with this statistic information nearby. And there is a place where you can have a lot of understanding about yourself in the context of the economy of the country.
Are there some other questions? Remarks?
I would like to take the advantage. There are a few slides that we didn't present for the possible next steps. And it's not only next steps in terms of Moldavia, it's what we are doing right now with our clients in Europe, which is putting together two models or two paradigms, which is evidence-based policy, strategy, but also operational decisions with open government data. You put this together, but you put it in open government principles, which is not only about data, it's not only about technology, it's about the engagement with the actors, it's about the engagement with the citizens, it's about decentralizing analysis. Because if you have the data, you don't know how people will use it to make their own analysis, and that's exactly what Mr. Gerby was explaining. Once you give the data to the people, they do things that you wouldn't expect. And we've interacted with the IT people, and they are perfectly capable of doing that, so there is no doubt. And what are the results of this? As explained in the beginning, it's learning by monitoring, so it's an iterative process, but it's also about open science and innovation. So open science and innovation means an innovation process which demands or requires the interaction between different actors who have different expertise in the private sector, in the public sector, across and also between them. And for that you need an initial understanding, an initial knowledge of what other people is doing. So in a way, one of the possible ways forward is continue improving and providing more information. In fact, one thing that we are doing right now is, it's a project that we just started, is okay, you have the data from the sources, but then you want to also recommend the experts. Because coming back to the question about the people, no? If you want to know about filtering technologies in the area of Moldova, hey, talk with these 3 people. And this first interface supporting collaboration. And then also the third result is one of accountability or transparency. Transparency, accountability, transparency. No? As you move forward, the actors get sophisticated, they demand more, and you have to be able to provide them the answers and the tools to actually also understand why you are doing things and how can they contribute to improving them. And this is a global thing. It's a thing that we are investigating very recently, and we are very happy to move forward. And I think that you have the great opportunity to also lead in this situation at a moment of transformation of the ecosystem, because we have huge problems to get data from different departments. Here it took us 3 weeks. So it takes years. I mean, literally years to get data from administrations. So if you start, the question is that reverse the question. Don't ask for data. The data is there. You publish it. You are doing it. You are publishing it. It's there. So now exploit it. No? Data is power. In many places, people sit on the data because they know it's their resource. So here you have the opportunity to move past this and support open government, support evidence-based policies, and support open innovation in the ecosystem.
I want to add the Information Society.
Oh.
In institute, you use our data from our database. We develop information about projects, but we have another bigger database, more than 60,000 publications in open access, and in this database you can it will appear Romania at the first place by collaboration. It will appear another domain that we have a lot of collaboration. It need to take in account because publication in the EC indexed journals, it's only a small part. We need to take in account our local specific, because we have our culture, and a lot of research are doing only at the national level, collaboration with Romania and collaboration with ex-Soviet Union countries. We need to take in account, and we have a lot very interesting such kind of maps that you elaborate. And our proposal is to think about continuity, because a very big problem in Moldova is continuity of not only national project but international project. How to institutionalize this exercise to have a long-term impact in our country. And if someone, you can identify ipnet.edc.md, you can not only see the data, but download all the publication from research journals, from scientific events, conferences that we collect each day, and now we want to interconnect with international publications to see on the one click, not only to see the data, but to download the information and maybe to analyze with data mining. And thank you for a very good exercise. And we want to have a collaboration because we did a lot of effort. Someone use our data, and we are suntem uitați de țară. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, because
the country never forgets his heroes. It's just take time.
Igor, I didn't know you were in the room. I would have thanked you because in the report you are thanked by name. So again, the data is perfect, and the tools to query the data are also perfect. we just made a small, how you say that, umbrella analysis. But first thing would be integrate all the data, all the publications, also the ones which are not international indexed, and then probably some work with translation and analysis of the content across data. That would be.
In 1 second, yes, internet. To see if I have 1 minute.
Sure.
We have some information about project in English, not for all that you analyze, and you can see another figure. It's even
Închideți-l acolo.
idea.
This is also some kind of reward we were giving before.
Da, eu o să-mi permit confortul să vorbesc în limba care m-a născut mama. Uitați-vă, astăzi este data de 17, a apărut o revistă și conferință. 60.000 de publicații, 31.000 de autori. Adică informația este actualizată la zi. 2592 de numere de reviste, 56.000 de articole în reviste. Distribuirea articolului pe țări. Și o să vedeți ceea ce domnul ministru a menționat, unde nu se vede. Aici este partea ascunsă și aici se găsește foarte mult adevăr. Ce este important, noi clasificăm conținutul conform clasificării zecimale universale. Clasificarea pe domenii. Și se poate vedea în ce domeniu și ce publicații avem noi la nivel național. Le corelăm acum și pe cele indexate în Web of Science și mai departe în...
So these are national journals.
Yes. Da.
Okay.
Ca să înțelegeți, doar 7% maxim de publicații sunt la nivel internațional. În restul toate, din păcate, acum multe reviste încearcă să ajungă, dar mai... Și așa se vede colaborare. Uitați, s-ar părea că, de fapt, cele mai multe publicații în reviste avem moldoveni, s-ar părea cu România, dar uitați, Ucraina. Și aici se vede o mare parte. Ce este important, clasificarea pe domenii, iarăși.
This data was used by Hollanders in his report also.
Adică sunt, aici s-ar putea de făcut o analiză altceva, ar fi bine ca Ministerul să ia în calcul și să finanțeze cercetări pentru a analiza tot acest conținut. Noi încercăm să-l cumulăm, dar este o altă parte și ar putea crea capacități în... Și vreau să arăt încă un element foarte important. Aici vorbim de fapt despre informații științifice cu acces deschis. Este o mapare similară ca și la Web of Science. Noi, la nivel internațional, suntem cel mai performanți în științele fizico-matematice. Aici arătat, publicați. Dar la nivel național, uitați, apare dreptul, apare medicina, 10.000 de articole din 60. Apare economia, apare filologia, pedagogia și apoi partea bună este că noi putem vedea și în timp cum s-a dezvoltat și cum a influențat deciziile politice asupra dezvoltării sistemului. Adică aici se poate de luat ce se va întâmpla după specializarea inteligentă. Adică noi am fost la nivel internațional, la nivel similar în 2005. În 2005 noi avem aceeași imagine ca și la nivel internațional. Iar după aceasta totul s-a schimbat. Și se gustează. Asta este situația. V-am recomandat să analizați, este foarte... și este colaborarea autorilor. Ați putea vedea fiecare cercetător. Așa.
poate vedea și colaborarea între autori, nu este între grupe de cercetare. Același lucru se poate vedea și pe organizații, adică ar fi o analiză comparativă la ceea ce aici este pagina autorului, 176 de publicații care dumneavoastră le-ați analizat, dar n-ați analizat altele, cel puțin 74 de publicații ale autorului. Asta este colaborarea doar unui singur autor și doar din 2014 am analizat colaborarea în câte reviste, ce domenii, adică este un graf cu un nivel mai mic, dar este și colaborarea pe țări, iar și același lucru. Asta e un singur autor. Aceeași colaborare se poate lua în calcul și pe organizații. Adică cele mai multe publicații, și aici, dacă observați, aici avem publicațiile atât din reviste, de la conferințe și sunt și publicațiile indexate în scopuri. Adică avem și cele pisfotare. Aici e o mapă adică o imagine mai clară. Am recomandat să utilizați și acest instrument, inclusiv în luarea deciziilor. Vă mulțumesc. Dacă sunt întrebări.
I think that during the process of preparing the report, you are in contact. You had some video conferencing together.
We had video conferences where we asked for data about just national projects. I mean, what I want to say is that the resources that you have here are fantastic. I mean, we really got a very good impression of what you developed, how you presented, and the kind of information that you yield. I mean, it's something that you don't see around. So, I mean, it's fantastic. Of course, this process that we're kicking off today is an iterative process. So, one of the major issues of this process is, as Eric was saying, is actually bringing the right people together to speak with each other. So we needed a pretext to bring all these stakeholders together today. The pretext was the tool that we created that, of course, has been made in a short time frame. So we, of course, just exploited a tiny fraction of information. But what we created is just a pretext to start the discussion. So I believe that, of course, what you have can improve greatly whatever we have produced, which doesn't really aim to be a final solution, but rather a first step to bring people to discuss together with which are the potentials that one would like to.
The main challenge is crossing classical classifications, existing classifications, with new fields as defined by S3. So, in a way, we did the effort of this question of topic modeling to overcome a challenge which is common, which is understanding what is inside the aggregates that normally we face. The granularity of this, not only granularity, but the ways of exploiting is wonderful. I believe that after EDP, when the actual priorities, be it more sectoral or more technological, science-oriented, if you can produce also this kind of mapping between taxonomies and continue building this, it will be a tool to access from the view of the S3 the depth of data that you greatly manage.
We are very innovative to now because we have a lot of classifiers, and in our database we tweak expert an account, and we have some information based on the old and the new classifications. But each time when we have a change in our government, they elaborate a new classifiers, and it's very it's not so easy to solve such kind of problem.
No, it's a challenge for everyone.
You can see all classifiers, new and last one. We try, but it's not so easy to merge this. It's a very big problem.
Yeah, that's the reason why we are moving to semantic analysis. Because, for instance, now the new trend is Industry 4.0, Internet of Things, digital innovation hubs. So, I don't know who is it, policymakers, consultants, people come with new labels, with new ways of branding, labeling activities. So obviously there is a demand from policymakers to understand, hey, what's happening in this realm? What's happening here? So we are always fighting the last war. No? They say generals are always fighting the last war. That's a bit the same, no? We have to build ways of more rapidly, faster response to the different demands that emerge from actors and from policymakers.
We are using the keywords analysis, but we need to go another step. Thank you so much. Ce are nevoie de buclete, vă puteți lua de aici. Noi suntem deschiși pentru colaborare și le mulțumesc tuturor care au colaborat cu noi în dezvoltarea acestor sisteme, care au furnizat conținutul și sunt și aici persoane care vă mulțumesc foarte mult.
Da, Igor, cred că puteți continua discuțiile inclusiv bilateral cu colegii de la SERI, să vedeți cum se puneți în valoare deci, cele realizate. Just coming back to the presentation of Nina, I hope in the afternoon we will have a presentation of the up-to-date results of the Ministry of Education, Culture and Research. Now there is a new agency for research and development created. There are, say, some reshifting of the national R&D ecosystem. We hope that S3 will be part of this agenda, of the official governmental agenda. In this case, going at the point of governance, I think that we will have to take an official decision, or the Moldovan authorities should take an official decision concerning the governance structure. Because we cannot fulfill or go further on only with a small task force dedicated to S3. We need to have an interministerial, let's say, committee dealing with this. We will need to have different task force, also connected to EDPs, also connected to data gathering, to data interpretation, and so on and so forth. So this will be an entire structure of responsibilities and people and stakeholders involved. Of course, you will be involved in this process, and we need to sit and discuss together today and tomorrow how we can do this, because as this is new for you, this is also new for us. I mean, those who are now promoting this process. So I think that in the afternoon it will be more clear how we will work further on just approaching the EDP and how the stakeholders will be involved in this process.
I really would like to thank to our S3 team, our S3 thanks here, who are keeping dedicated and motivated to the process in the changing conditions, and indeed, like we need institutional lead which would facilitate all process and cooperation with the GSC and would facilitate and support. So, well, this afternoon we will have a meeting with the Ministry of Education and Research, and I think we are also invited to join. And the next day will be dedicated for entrepreneurial discovery process, how to organize it, and then we will have Romanian experts sharing their experience. We will have an opportunity also to hear their presentations this afternoon.
Da, deci Deci la 1:30 la Casa Guvernului intrare din Bănuiesc Bodone va avea loc deci reuniunea cu Ministerul Educației, Culturii și Cercetării. Vă invităm pe toți, fiindcă vor fi niște prezentări foarte interesante și de partea colegilor din România, care vor face o trece în revista activităților legate de S3 în România. Și, ok, acolo vom discuta și despre deci, specificul procesului viitor de descoperire antreprenorială, iar mâine, iarăși la cameră, în aceeași sală vom avea un șir întreg de activități ce țin mijlocit de procesul de descoperire antreprenorială, inclusiv anumite activități practice, da? Prin care vom identifica și anumite soluții sau anumite trăsături care sunt caracteristice pentru viitorul proces, vor fi caracteristice pentru viitorul proces de descoperire antreprenorială în cadrul Republicii Moldova. Vă mulțumim mult pentru prezență. La 1:30 la Casa Guvernului, la intrare. Da, la intrare.
La etajul 1, din cor.
Intrare
de la Bănuiesc Bodone.
Ședință unde va avea loc?
Casa Guvernului.
La parter, în sala de ședință.
Da, mulțumim.
Da, vă mulțumim mult.